All right, so rung the bell, got everything sorted out. The bike was just assembled and put together today. It's fresh out of the crate. Everything's brand spanking new, perfect looking. 2022 Honda 450RL in the truck. Did a lot of research on this bike, took me a long time to decide. This is what I wanted to go with, and this is what I went with. Couldn't stray away from the Honda. Toyed around with the idea of a Husky and a KTM for a little while, but when I started getting down to thinking, it was like, man, I can't really go away from my beloved Hondas. So this is Honda's best attempt at making a dual sport that is still motocrossy, and hopefully it's on the edge of the racy side more than the street side. If not, we got a whole list of modifications lined up that I'm looking forward to doing on it, and looking forward to making it into something that will do what I want to do. All right, let's take it home, get her off the truck. So my history of riding starts way back. I was 3 years old, 4 years old. Started riding the Honda ATC 70, same one I still have actually, up in the mountains of upstate New York. And my parents used to go trail riding up there with me, and it was always ATVs, ATCs, until I was about 13, 14 maybe years old, when my dad brought home a 1987 Honda CRF125. And he knew that I was a really big fan of Supercross, loved motocross. That was the Jeremy McGrath era. We're talking mid-90s, pinnacle of motocross and Supercross culture in this country, and one of the best times for motocross in my opinion. If you're Jeremy McGrath, you were one of the most famous people in the country, maybe even the world. These are guys that I looked up to. I watched Crusty Demons of Dirt religiously. I love those videos. I love the culture. I love the style, the attitude, the punk rock nature of it, everything about it. So after the CR125, I started getting into cars and driving, and a couple of XR50s here and there in between. And then about 5 years ago, I decided to get into a DR-Z400S dual sport. Dual sports are famous for doing anything, but also not doing any of those things too well or great. It's kind of an impossible task. And the DR-Z is, to me, kind of one of the more basic dual sports. It's got a lot of power. It's good for doing stuff, but it just didn't really suit me perfectly. I tried to make it a trail bike, but I didn't really go ride trails. It was a weird season in my life to where Rennen was interested in motorcycles, but I couldn't really share the passion with him with that big of a bike. So it kind of fell by the wayside. I never really rode it. It was in perfect showroom condition. So I ended up getting rid of that bike in favor of the Honda Monkey, which sparked the whole small bore, small play bike phase of my life, which I'm still very much in. But that's a perfect bike. The small play bikes were a perfect bike for that season of my life, which was getting my kids into riding and being able to ride around with my kids on small bikes that were easy to ride, easy to maintain, and just jump on and go. Didn't even need to wear full gear or anything, just fun little bikes. So now the season of my life is kind of shifting again to where Rennen is on a fast 50. He's on the EE5, the Husqvarna EE5. He's getting onto the CRF110. He'll be on a 65 probably after he turns 8. So now he's getting to bigger and better things. And the play bikes, the Monkey, the Grom, the Trail, those bikes can't really keep up with him anymore. Or he's going and tackling things that those bikes don't tackle so good. such as sugar sand trails, motocross tracks, just more extreme things. We might want to check out some hare scrambles. So he's kind of making me outgrow my current fleet of bikes. So that's another reason why I needed to look at the next step for myself. So basically the season of my life is I need a reliable bike that can handle anything, that can go on the little sunset cruises that we take on the road, that I could basically do anything with. So this is where dual sports come back into play. The biggest moment of where I decided I needed a dual sport, however, was what I call the epiphany. So during our 2022 summer trip to our place in upstate New York, which is dual sport heaven. You have every sort of trail you can imagine. You have mud, river crossings, log hops, you have inclines, declines, open road riding, gravel road, dirt roads, anything. During the last couple of years, I've been taking the play bikes up there, the small bores, so the Grom, the Monkey, the Trail 125. And while they can do that stuff, it was this past year in the summer of 2022, that I had a question: what am I doing with myself right now? Why am I trying to tackle these extreme things on these small bikes? I'm killing myself. Literally, it was rough. So this year, it was one of those epiphany type moments of clarity. Why am I on this little bike? I don't need to be on this little bike. I think I've proven that this little bike can do this to myself and to people on YouTube. So what's next? The little bikes are fun, but I don't know if I'm willing to do this year after year. So where do we go from here? So this epiphany got me thinking about, all right, what are the dual sports out there that can do what I want? So for me, what I wanted was that potential to be a motocross practice bike, a trail riding bike, a bike that I can jump on and go for the sunset cruise on, a bike that I can pop my 4-year-old on the front of and not have to be so temperamental that I couldn't take him on a little ride, a bike that I can have a lot of fun with, a bike that I can introduce Rennen to trail riding with, a bike that I can maybe participate in hare scrambles with. I also learned about dual sport rallies during our vacation this year in upstate New York. So there's a big dual sport rally in upstate New York called the Quarry Run. It's a club called the Bear Creek Sportsmen that put on this pretty epic dual sport rally. It's about 100 miles across 2 days, trail riding, open road riding, everything. However, the rules for that rally are very strict. You got to have the odometer, you got to have speedometer, you got to have all the things you need to be road legal. So that kind of rules out a lot of bikes unless you're willing to put all those parts onto a motocross bike, which is possible and definitely something a lot of people do, but not really something I was sure that I wanted to do. All right, so the epiphany moment led to me thinking about what I should do, which led me to thinking about what motorcycles are best applicable to what I wanted to do, which led me to, well, I kind of want to take it on a track if I want to. So that led me to a bike that is capable of that. Really, this narrowed down to just a few bikes out there. Of course, the first bike that popped into my head was a Honda. All right, what does Honda make? So Honda makes the CRF300L, and then they make the 450RL. So the 300L popped up, and okay, let me look at it. Price is great, $5,000 or $6,000. However, is it going to be able to go on a motocross track? So everything can go on a motocross track, but should it? No. So the 300 looked pretty soft, looked more road geared than off-road geared. So then I started looking at the 450RL. Big jump in price. These are $10,000 MSRP. However, this is basically a 450 race bike tuned down for the street. So this is a pretty serious bike. Where the 300 is a more road-tuned bike that can go off-road, this is more a race bike that is tuned to go on-road. So I kind of like that. I like the fact that you have a race bike or race bike DNA or a race bike hidden inside an emissions-choked street-legal dual sport. that really piqued my interest. However, it's worth noting that the KTM group bikes, so the KTM and the Husqvarna, have some really nice dual sport offerings. And maybe even more so race bred and race DNA than this bike. So that also was something I was looking at. And with Rennen having the Husqvarna EE5, I really like the build quality of that. And I always thought one day that I might want to have myself a Husqvarna. However, the price of the Husqvarna and the KTMs are even a couple $1,000s more than this Honda. So now you're looking at around $15,000 total price. That's a lot of money for, somebody that dabbles like me, that's not hardcore. So I don't know, I had a lot to think about. So you're here, you're already listening to this. If you're still here, you're doing your research just like I did. So the research is very important. I joined a lot of dual sport groups on Facebook. I joined the Honda 450RL and L group on Facebook, 2 or 3 of them to be exact. I started listening to the people that had them, what they were complaining about, what they were doing to their bikes, maybe what some of the problems were, some of the drawbacks, some of the things they loved, some of the things they hated. I also did the same thing for the Husqvarna and the KTM. I asked people that I knew. I have a friend out there who has a 450RL, so I asked him how he liked it. He let me know everything he thought. I asked him if he'd ever ridden the KTMs or the Husqvarnas. He had. He gave me the pros and cons of those. So I'm not going to get into all that right now. There's arguments for both bikes. There's arguments for KTMs. There's arguments for Hondas. And it was a really hard decision for me on which way I wanted to go. So that's all I got. That was pretty long. Hopefully you were like me and you were looking for a really in-depth review of somebody that did a lot of research on why they wanted this bike and got the bike and what they think of it in that initial phase just after getting it. So this is a really niche video. It's for somebody that's doing a lot of research on the 450RL or the 450L, figuring out if it's right for them, and hopefully your season of life is similar to mine and all of our thoughts and everything line up and help you decide if this bike is right for you or not.